And what is going on, everybody? Yes, it is Blake here. I am finally back. Been a couple week break, but we are finally here with G-SYNCH podcast, season 0, episode 4. And boy, oh boy, am I recording this one at an even later time than the last. I believe it was the last one, episode 3, where I was also recording very late today. I've managed to top my previous record of, I think the last one was maybe done at 2 a.m. It's 5 o'clock in the morning right now. Yeah, very, 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 very late. And you know what's even worse? You know what's even worse is that this probably has the potential to be the most packed, I guess discussion-wise, coverage-wise, episode I've done so far. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today, but due to the nature of the situation, due to it being so late, I may actually end up breezing through this one a little bit more quickly than the past couple episodes. Not to worry, this will still easily be at least an hour long, but I may not be able to spend as much time on certain topics as I would have initially liked to. Kind of thought about maybe pushing this off until the following week, but I'm already so behind because technically there was supposed to be 2 more episodes these past couple weeks, but it's just been crazy busy. I wanted to get one out before leaving for PAX, but no time for that. And the week I get back, it's even more mad, and then now here I am finally. So I was just like, you know what, this can't wait. If we're ever going to eventually actually kick off season 1 and all the other stuff I actually want to do for this thing, we got to start getting out the rest of these season 0 episodes. We gotta start getting through this. So we've got about six is I planned 10 episodes. I guess at least 9. I wouldn't mind starting season 1 on episode 10, but I guess at least 5 more episodes for season 0 here. So we're definitely powering through it. This will be dropping on Easter Sunday. It's Easter right now, but this is an interesting time to be dropping a podcast. I mean, this is the second holiday that I've released an episode. I think I did episode 2 on I think that one actually released on Thanksgiving Day. Yeah, I think that it released like late Thanksgiving Day evening. But anyway, enough about that. We've got a lot of stuff to go into today. And kind of the main overall topic that I wanted to touch on today is just kind of going over my my PAX trip from what I can remember at this point, at least, and sort of talking a little bit about my favorite indie titles that I got to check out while at the show this year. I wanted to make an extra effort this year to really get a good glimpse at some of the indie stuff, and I'm really glad that I did spend some time looking at some of that stuff because, boy, there's some really cool indie stuff in the works for sure. And I definitely feel like now with PAX sort of taking a step back from having their show being primarily just big time developers, third party studios, stuff like that. It's much, much more of an indie show now, especially ever since PAX South sort of got, I don't want to say canceled, because they never outright said that it's never coming back. It just kind of got canceled one year and just never came back. But PAX South was always like traditionally the indie PAX, sort of like it was the first PAX of the year, was always usually held in January in the Midwest. Or actually no, it was in Texas, so I guess Southwest, but that one normally always had the indie stuff. It was mainly an indie show. But now that that's gone, and ever since COVID, in this post-COVID world, a lot of stuff has changed because technically we did lose 3 years to COVID, so a lot can change in 3 years, and apparently that includes bigger developers, first-party studios, third-party studios, just not really wanting to come out to conventions and shows as much since they want to hold stuff of their own. Mind you, most of the stuff that they hold is like online crap. So this is gonna just be a whole entire thing that I'm gonna dive into later. When I actually talk about the trip this year, my overall thoughts on PAX this year compared to last year, especially because last year was the first year that it came back since COVID, or since 2020. So, I'll kind of compare the two a little bit, talk about some of the indie games, and maybe go into some other stuff. But first, obviously, we got to hop into the news. The most important thing, the main meat and potatoes, I guess you could say, to a degree, of this podcast is going over some of this gaming-related news. And obviously, I think, first of all, I have a lot of stuff on here, and some of this stuff is from a couple weeks ago. So yes, some of the stuff is old news, but I feel like it's significant enough for me to go over. Also, not to mention, we're kind of still in that slow period of the year. I mean, things don't normally start to pick up until around the summertime. We're getting there. We're getting closer. But yeah, we're definitely still in that slow-ish period. March is over, so, I mean, we're really kind of moving out of it now, but it's still early. It's still early. I was about to say February. It's still early April. Still early April, so we're not quite there yet, I would say. But anyway, I think the most, biggest announcement that has just shocked the entire industry to its core, or maybe not really. I don't think many people are really surprised, but this is obviously the whole announcement that E3 2023 is being canceled, or has been canceled. It's a bummer. It is a bummer. And you know what? I just wanted to mention that because it's obviously probably the biggest breaking news to come out within the past week or so. But I'm going to divulge into that a little bit later after I'm done talking about PAX, because some of the stuff that I wanted to mention sort of correlates a little bit with E3 because, they're both game shows. So I'm going to hold off on going into this, this whole E3 cancellation announcement. I'm going to hold off skimming through the article written by IGN. We're going to jump into something else in the meantime, which is some PlayStation 5 rumors and details. PlayStation 5 Pro rumors and details. Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. We've been getting Pro and Slim and deluxe versions of consoles for how long now? So obviously a PS5 one would eventually be coming. It's just, it only feels like it's too soon because it's been there's a whole year and a half that the PS5 was basically impossible to get. I mean, this thing came out in 2020, right? PS5 dropped in 2020, and these things were not readily available until basically fall of 2022. Yeah, actually fall of 2022, around October, is when they started to get a lot more available. Because I remember when I was first trying to get a hold of mine, I knew I wanted to get one in the fall. And I think I got mine the first wave on PS Direct where you didn't have to wait for a queue to get one. I didn't have to wait in any queue. They just went live, and just out of nowhere, they were available that day, and they've been available on PS Direct ever since. That was the first day, though, that I remember, because, I've tried in the past, and it's always been a queue, or it's always been sign up and blah, 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 and we'll let you know if there's one available. It's always like that, but that was the first day. Anyway, True Jumps into This is written by Game Rant. Talking about, according to a reputable leaker, Sony is hoping to launch its PlayStation 5 Pro console during the 2024 holiday season. 2024, that feels so far away, but it's going to come in the blink of an eye. The original PlayStation had multiple variants that released after the original model, as did the PlayStation 2, 3, and PSP. With the PS4, Sony didn't just release a redesigned version of the console, but released the PS4 Pro, a system more powerful than the base PS4 console. A rumor has it that Sony is planning a similar refresh for the PlayStation 5 in the form of a PS5 Pro, but fans should take the information with a grain of salt until an official announcement is made. So a lot of this is sort of speculation, but the article continues to state, recently leaker Tom Henderson spoke about Sony's future hardware plans that will play out over the next couple of years or so. According to Henderson, Sony is looking to launch new accessories for the PS5, including new earphones, a new headset, the leaked Q-Lite handheld device, which we'll be talking about next, and a new entirely PS5 with a detachable disk drive. In the same report, Henderson said it understood that the PS5 Pro is aiming for a holiday 2024 release. So, take that as you will. This leaked Q-Lite thing is a little bit more recent, I would say. As far as news goes, I feel like we've been hearing about like PS5 Pro stuff actually since like the beginning of the year, is really when whisperings started to become a little bit more prominent and a little bit more promising. So it sounds like it's just sounding more and more like this is a real deal, especially because it's just at this point it's just a waiting game. Like I think most people are expecting it, and it wouldn't come as a surprise to anyone if they just came out of nowhere and announced this, rather than Nintendo, for example, like announcing a like, I don't know, like a Switch Pro. Like there's people are torn when it comes to exactly what sort of thing Nintendo's going to release next. But at this point in the PS5's lifespan, I mean, a Pro variation would be no surprise, especially next year. This year, like, I would not believe it if somebody told me that a PS5 Pro is launching this year. I'd be like, no, there's no freaking way. But yeah, next year sounds a lot more reasonable. A lot more reasonable. Go on a little bit more over the article. It says Henderson's report also gives fans somewhat of an idea of when they can expect some of the other PS5 hardware to hit the market. In the report, Henderson states that the PS5 handheld device will be released before the PS5 Pro. The PS5 with a detachable disk drive, which Henderson also leaked, will come out sometime between the two devices, assuming his information is correct. I don't know why you would want a detachable disk drive. Can somebody please explain that to me? Like, what is the purpose of that? A detachable disk drive? What? Why do you want that? That sounds like shelf bloat is what that sounds like. That literally sounds like something that would just be sitting. It sounds to me that if they released a PS5 model where you could take off the disk drive, I feel like I would walk into a local Walmart or Target, Best Buy, whatever, see that joint sitting on the shelf. Just, you know, the digital only versions are sold out, the disc only versions are sold out. And that one is the one that would stay. Because what is the point? Like, I find it so unlikely. I don't know why they would even waste their time making something like that when they could just make a slim version of the PS5. That seems a lot more likely to me. Now, unless this is supposed to be like a slim PS5 with a detachable disk drive, then I could see that making a little bit more sense, because it's like, oh, here's a small console, yada yada yada. Maybe it's digital only, but you have the option to attach a disk drive to it or leave it detached, something like that. Then sure, but this just sounds like, it's pointless. I mean, especially if it's the same design and everything, but just as a detachable disk drive, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know, maybe somebody can enlighten me on that. Article goes in a little bit more about their current sales and how they're struggling with the VR2. We're not going to go into too much of that, especially since they already touched on the freaking Q-Lite, which is what I'm going to just transition right into next, is the Q-Lite, because this is the real meat and potatoes, man. This is the real meat and potatoes. Let me get some liquid in me before I jump into this one. And boy, when I say I am really pushing myself through this one. I am truly pushing myself through this one. The exhaustion is hitting me hard right now, but it's okay. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. So this is the this is a piece that I spent a little bit of time earlier this morning talking about in the Phantom Society server. In my Discord, we were talking about this handheld and whether or not it's actually needed. But before I go into my thoughts really quick, I will check out this article. So this is actually written by Tom Henderson himself from Insider Gaming, and so here's what it says. So following days of speculation, Insider Gaming can report that there's a new PlayStation handheld in development. Codenamed the Q-Lite, the next PlayStation handheld is the next piece of Sony hardware that aims to be yet another piece of hardware that requires the PlayStation 5. That aims to be yet another piece of hardware that requires the PlayStation 5. Very important wording to pay attention to there, and something that I actually did not pick out the first time I checked this out. So it says, it continues, Insider Gaming understands that the Q-Lite is not a cloud streaming device, but instead uses remote play with the PS5, a feature the console giant has been pushing these past couple weeks. Sporting adaptive streaming up to 1080p and 60 FPS, the new device will require constant connectivity to the internet. As for the console's physical features, early prototypes show that the console will look a lot like a PlayStation 5 controller, but with a massive 8-inch LCD touchscreen in the center. The device sports adaptive triggers for haptic feedback and will include what you come to expect from a handheld: volume button, speakers, an audio jack, an audio input jack, etc. Oh yeah, that's totally what I expect. Jeez, that's not the kind of stuff you want to hear. I'm worried about OS and like a ton of other things. Like all right, but sure. I mean, it's a functioning piece of technology. Congratulations. As previously mentioned by Industry Insider Jeff Grubb, Sony is planning to announce its second phase of the PS5, which was in reference to its future game slate. Ironically, though, the second phase is very much true for Sony's hardware offerings, with new detachable disc drive PlayStation 5, Project Nomad, which are apparently wireless earphones. This is news to me. Project Voyager, which is a wireless headset, and Q-Lite, which is the handheld, all scheduled to release within a very short period. It's understood that the PlayStation 5 Pro is aiming for a holiday 2024 release. So whatever Sony's next PlayStation showcase will be, it's seemingly going to be a big one. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting too, especially since we are coming up close on June here. I mean, no news on a state of play right now. It's April. When did they have their last one? Was it late February or maybe very early March? I feel like it was very early March, but it might have been late February. So I'm not really expecting one to happen this month, which means May or June. I feel like they can get by with pushing it to June and it sort of being like their quote unquote E3 sort of showcase. But or their summer game showcase, state of play, I guess you could say. But definitely whatever one happens next, I just feel like it's probably going to be the big one. I don't really see them doing one in May and then doing another one in June. I guess they could have one sort of centered around different things. But I think if one is to include the announcements of all these products, or at least the handheld, I think that's got to be like their big like summer games one. So I mean, if they're doing two, one in May and one in June, I would expect the handheld to be revealed in the June one for sure. Give me a second. This is the struggle of doing podcasts by yourself when you gotta talk nonstop. Always got to drink some liquid. So yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know how like this news managed to like escape me, because I was completely oblivious to this. I somehow came across it very early yesterday morning, and it wasn't even originally in my news lineup for the show, for the episode today. So this is like a last minute thing I added in, and I was like, oh, I don't want to add it because I know I'm gonna have to spend so much time on this. Like, I'm probably gonna spend more time on this than any other freaking news piece. But I was like, this is so huge. Like, I have to do it because I'm a huge fan of handhelds, man. I really am. I love handheld gaming devices. I love all of the, I love all of like the, how to explain it? The emulation devices that come out, you know, like the Analog Pocket. I don't know the names of a lot of them. The Analog Pocket's like the most popular one that I know. There's also that SNES one from a couple years ago. I just love handheld gaming devices. I think they're really sick. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that when I was younger, the Nintendo 64 was like the coolest thing in the world to me, and I would always just fantasize about a portable Nintendo 64. I would always like dream about being able to play my Nintendo 64 games like on the go on a handheld device, which is probably why the Nintendo DS was like a huge deal to me, because I remember the first time I saw a DS, I was still young. I couldn't understand, like, okay, how is this system running Mario 64? In my mind, I was like, is this game playing Nintendo 64 game? Like, I didn't understand that. No, it's a small little chip that you put in. Like, I was like, is this playing Nintendo 64 games? But it just blew my mind, because I was like, dude, like, holy crap, this is like everything that I ever dreamed of. So that's sort of where the obsession with handhelds sort of originated. And you know, even though people will make the argument that, hey, we don't really need handhelds anymore, we have phones, I still would say that phones are not exactly gaming. Like, they're not gaming handhelds, and they don't feel like it. And I just feel like also they don't really replace them either. That's gonna go into the whole, like, whether or not mobile games like are actual games or not, which is, it's such a stupid argument, because games are games. But I think a traditional handheld gaming experience is a lot more rich, usually a lot more fulfilling, and a lot more authentic than what a mobile gaming experience can offer. And that's sort of why I've like never really grown out of handheld devices. I get it. Phones are great. They're powerful. They can emulate a lot of things now. If not most things. Like, these phones are crazy. These phones are awesome, but that's not to say that a new next generation handheld gaming device, whether made by, you know, Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, that's not to say that one of those couldn't be as popular as a modern phone, if not more popular. I think if you take out the equation of, oh yeah, this has to function like a phone, I think if you take that out of the equation and just focus on making it a powerful gaming handheld device rather than being all this other phone stuff, I think you can easily make something more powerful than like a modern iPhone, or like a modern or a current generation Samsung Galaxy or whatever. Even something more powerful than like an Asus ROG phone, like, and that's kind of what I hope is the Q Lite. I mean, if Sony is actually returning to the handheld market, which just seems like this, I'm not even gonna get my hopes up, because this seems like them sort of teetering on the line. It seems like it's not. It seems like it's really just there to complement the PS5 and just sort of meant to be a, I mean, the wording of the article is so confusing, because they make it sound like, okay, it says it's not a cloud streaming device, but it uses remote play. I mean, is remote play not technically, it's not cloud streaming, I guess, but it's still streaming. And at that point, it's just like, what's the difference? Like, you're not playing the actual game in real time. Like, the game isn't running off of it's not running natively off of the handheld hardware. It's being streamed. At least that's my understanding of remote play. Like it's not actually running on the system. It's just, I wish I understood like the the technical aspects of it, but it's not the same as, you know, popping in a disc or a game cart and playing the game without the need for some sort of streaming. It's a little bit different. So, or it's a lot different. So that's why I feel like this is sort of not exactly a full-on commitment to being an actual standalone handheld, but rather just actually just like an accessory to just complement a PS5. Because I mean, from the sounds of it, like so far, what I've seen in this article, like, what are you supposed to do with this thing if you don't have a PS5? If you don't have a PS5, then what's the point of it? Like, there's no point in having one. So it just sounds like more like a PS5 accessory, in my opinion. And so yeah, I mean, is this what? This isn't it, is it? There is a little trailer on their site, and it shows like the remote play stuff, and it shows it streaming to a phone, a laptop, a tablet, and I guess like something that looks like a looks like what the Q Lite would be, like a phone with controllers on the side. But if that's literally all it is, just like a streaming or remote play device, like a PlayStation remote play device, like literally only created for remote play, I couldn't really consider that to be, I couldn't really consider that to be a handheld. Like, I think people should probably, word this a little bit better if that's what it's supposed to be. And like reading some of the comments on here, one of the comments said, I think it's a wrong move that it's only usable in conjunction with the PS5. If it was available like the Vita, it would have better potential. Now you're obligated to buy a PS5 in order to use it. Just a bad move. And I 100% agree. I think even though launching a Vita successor in this current state, or even even like in this current age, even though launching a Vita successor would arguably be very risky, and someone even might think a bad like business decision, I still think that would have a better shot at succeeding at the long term than this. I mean, there's just no way somebody's gonna be like, oh, okay, obviously some people are, but I think there's no way you're gonna get a mass amount of people to be like, oh, well, I could either spend what $400-$300 to have a Sony exclusive remote play device, or sorry, Sony produced or made remote play device, or I could just, you know, save money and use my phone, my laptop, or my tablet. Like, people are obviously gonna go with whatever they have that currently works with remote play, if that's exactly what this is gonna be. Because no way people are gonna run out and buy a PS5 plus this. Like, it just sounds silly. It almost sounds dumb, which is kind of why I'm a little bit skeptical about some of this information, because it's very wishy-washy. It's not very clear. They say it's on a cloud streaming, but they say it's remote play. It's just, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And apparently this is like supposed to be revealed very soon, and coming before the PS5 Pro. So, I mean, yeah, it's got to be talked about soon if this thing even exists. And yeah, I mean, I guess this will definitely be something that I come back to later, for sure, as we get closer, or, you know, if they end up talking about it this year, like, I will potentially end up doing an entire episode on this, on this topic. And you know, maybe even then I could bring in Sabito, who I was talking to about it, and, you know, he could share his thoughts. But like, that's definitely some season 1 type stuff, because like I said, I don't think they're gonna talk about this until like June. So I don't think they'll be revealing this thing until June. So that's pretty much that. Yeah, definitely a big one. Definitely a big one. We're gonna move on. This is a little bit older news. Nintendo and Doug Bowser, our favorite guy, commenting a little bit on the next bit of new Nintendo hardware, when we might be able to expect it. This is another very old article. I might have even talked about this before. I feel like I may have already mentioned this on episode 3, but I can't remember. But I think I might have. I actually think I might have already. And this is so old, I'm just now realizing it's so old. I don't even want to talk about it. That's that old. Actually, there's a good chance that I didn't mention this. There's a pretty good chance that I didn't talk about it. But anyway, Doug Bowser had an interview with the Associated Press not too long ago, about a month ago. And he was asked a little bit about the current state of the Nintendo Switch and, sort of what they're expecting, or what we can expect as far as how long they're really expecting the Switch to last and be, I guess, I don't know, a profit to them. But the question was, when is the next Switch coming out? What kinds of features or new capabilities would you like to see? Which is just a stupid question for you to ask anybody from Nintendo. You want to juice some information on Nintendo, you got to trick them. You got to somehow find a way. You got to ask. You can't be straightforward with them, okay? You literally can't, because these weasels will always either just, they'll give you they will answer as if you ask them a completely different question. That is what they will do. I have every single time I see somebody interview somebody with Nintendo, I just facepalm, because it's like, they are never going to tell you what you want to hear. They will go the furthest out of their way to tell you something that almost has nothing to do with the question that you asked. Which is just, it's so funny to me. But anyway, this is his answer. So Doug says, as we enter the 7th year for the Nintendo Switch, sales are still strong. I think we still have a very, very strong lineup coming. As Mr. Furukawa said, which is the current president of Nintendo Japan, recently, we're entering uncharted territory with the platform. It's exciting to see that the demand is still there. So nothing to announce on any future console or device, but we are still feeling very bullish about Nintendo Switch. Very rarely, I don't even think like this has ever happened, like ever, have they will never talk about like a new device. Even if it's like known that one is coming, they generally just don't talk about their new device while their current one is selling well. And here's a better way to put it. If they're not currently marketing said new device, they're not going to talk about it, because they want to continue to advertise and market what they're currently marketing. So they won't talk about the new device until they're ready to sort of push out, say it's the Switch Pro or whatever. They're not, even if the Switch Pro got leaked tomorrow and it was so obvious, like everything got leaked, it was so obvious that was coming, the whole world knew, they wouldn't talk about it at all until they're ready to market the device. And that's just how they roll. So, I mean, asking them these questions it's silly to me, because they're always going to push whatever they're currently trying to market. Whatever currently is available for consumers to purchase, that's what they're going to push, and they're not going to advertise anything else until they are ready to until them pre-orders go live. Until them pre-orders go live, they ain't gonna be talking about it. It's about that simple. So I mean, that's all for that. But I will say, the main thing I did want to say about this piece too is that things have been picking up quite a bit with Nintendo and rumors regarding the Switch Pro a while back. And this is probably actually what I touched on during episode 3, was that somewhere things are starting to pick up that, yeah, it's looking really likely that they're probably going to end up announcing a updated version of the Switch sometime this year. Probably at the end of the year, they'll probably announce it. Could even happen in the summer, I suppose, but it's looking very likely that Nintendo is readying up to announce like a new refresh model of the Switch. Whether they call it the Super Nintendo Switch or, you know, the Nintendo Switch Pro or the Pro Nintendo Switch, I don't know. But I think it's pretty clear that whatever they have in store next isn't going to replace the Switch. I don't think. I think it'll be very hard for them to move on from what like the Switch offers and how it is, which also just makes the even trying to fathom what their next platform would be like. It makes trying to even imagine that a lot more tricky because I mean, personally, I can't imagine buying a Nintendo device that's not like the Switch. I just want the Switch for the rest of my life, just updated and better visuals, more like I just want a Switch refresh like every 3 years. Like just give me that every 3 years, and I'm happy for life for Nintendo. Like they don't need to do anything else. Just keep updating the Switch every 3 years with new hardware. That's about it. Like that would be the perfect end game for me. I don't really want them to mess around with anything else. So moving on from that, onto our last news piece, for at least industry gaming, general gaming industry related news. We've got another potential new hardware device on the horizon. New Steam Deck. Another Steam Deck, another piece of hardware that has also recently become readily available to everybody, just like the PlayStation 5. Throughout the past, 6-7 months or so, these things have been, I mean, you could just go on their store and just buy one and it'll ship pretty quickly. If not, it'll ship within 2 weeks, I think. Something like that. That's the longest amount of time I've seen it take since, probably since like late last year, maybe fall last year. I think most of them are shipping, within 2 weeks from your order. But, yeah, so apparently there's a new model coming on the horizon, which I still feel like it's a little bit too soon, but definitely like out of everybody making like portable hardware right now, I would expect Valve for sure to be the ones to be like, okay, time for a hardware refresh. I would expect them to be like that the most out of everybody else producing like portable hardware. I expect them to be more adamant about about getting new hardware or hardware refreshes out as quickly as possible. Anyway, this one's by Game Rant. Says Valve Steam Deck handheld has been available for purchase for just over a year at this point, and one of the people working on the device has explained what the odds are of seeing a Steam Deck 2. While the popularity of the device cannot be denied, most users seem to agree that it's not perfect by any meaningful measure, and there are things that a potential successor could do better. One of the things that make the Steam Deck special is Valve's eagerness to engage with the community and work with the end user to make the handheld better. This led to a whole slew of post-release software upgrades already, with beta builds of SteamOS already underway. Valve is unlikely to stop working on the device anytime soon. Trying to get into the meat and potatoes of this. So it says, to celebrate the deck's first year of availability, Rock Paper Shotgun invited Valve engineer Pierre Loup, how do I even say this? Jerfei, and designer Lawrence Yang to discuss all manner of topics relating to the device. Jerfei and Yang confirmed that there are more Steam Deck performance improvements in the pipeline, but they also talked about the importance of future value add features for the device, such as ray tracing support, HDR for external displays, It's no surprise that the topic of a potential Steam Deck 2 got brought up along the way as well, only for Yang to clarify without mincing words, a true next-gen deck with a significant bump in horsepower wouldn't be for a few years. In other words, those who might have been worried about experiencing buyer's remorse over buying a last-gen Steam Deck shouldn't be concerned. Valve is currently interested in making the most out of its baseline handheld, and this approach, combined with unofficial performance tweaks for Steam Deck, will ensure that its long shelf life compared to almost all other PC gaming handhelds on the market. So there you have it. I mean, if that doesn't tell you that this a sequel to the Steam Deck is still a bit of ways, I don't know what will. I wasn't really sure exactly where this was going because I almost this is an even older piece actually. This is like beginning of March, so I might have actually touched on this before too. But yeah, for a second, I was kind of assuming this was Steam Deck it's coming, like it's gonna be a thing. But I really want one of these. I still really want one of these. I kind of want to try and get one. Maybe, I said in a few months it would be nice to have one, but I'm thinking maybe sometime in the fall I would like to get one, or maybe before the next big trip. It would be cool to have one. The only thing is I just wouldn't really know for sure what I would play on it, and I also need to see how it runs certain games. I did get a chance actually for the first time ever to play on a Steam Deck at PAX actually. I got to play one of the indie games that I'll be talking about in a short bit here. I got to play it on a Steam Deck. I got to try it out for the first time on a Steam Deck, and I will say, like, it feels very good to play, very good to hold. Yes, it is a hefty device, but it feels really nice, and it looks like it just runs things very nicely as well. So, I mean, with this being the first iteration, yeah, sure, it's not perfect to some people, but to me, I mean, it feels great. So I can't imagine how much more they'd be able to improve on a sequel. But for sure, I mean, if they were to release one, I'm sure it'd be great. But not for a while off, and I think rightfully so, because once again, these things have just become readily available. Not even for a full year now, so yeah, I mean, I don't think they would be able to mass produce a sequel even if they wanted to right now. So I think it's pretty reasonable that the original is here to stick around for a bit longer. But it is getting Dolphin, which is another thing that's not quite in my list of news pieces, but it's a pretty big deal, actually. Dolphin is coming to Steam, I think sometime in the spring, or maybe it was spring or summer for sure. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a game changer for sure. I mean, right off the bat there, I mean, that means we can play GameCube games on our Steam Deck, like, basically online, too. I mean, that's awesome. So, natively, you can play, well, not natively, but, you could play them on the Steam Deck device without needing to, run Windows or some other nonsense. Like, you can literally just boot into Dolphin from Steam itself and run your games. So it's gonna be great, and that's another reason why I actually want a Steam Deck. Like, being able to play like Double Dash or like, man, that'll be so great. That'll be so great. I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to get one of these things. For sure, definitely want one. For sure, definitely want one. Man, I'm dying out here. But moving on, that's all for the news pieces. We're gonna move on to a fighting game community segment, which is, I don't know. We did some FGC stuff not too long ago with the initial normal EVO 2023 lineup reveal, but we're going to go back around real quick to EVO Japan 2023 announcements, because boy, did we get some nice juicy fighting game announcements during this EVO, and during this EVO Japan, and I think my FGC segments will probably be something that'll be quite frequent going forward here on this podcast, at least until I start doing Fighters Corners videos again. In case you don't know, Fighters Corners or Fighters Corner was a very short-lived YouTube series that I did for a little bit that was basically just like going through fighting game news throughout the week and sort of a I don't even know how to say it. It's sort of like a live news broadcast sort of format. I stopped doing those a while back, but I would like to do them again. I just really miss my old green screen setup and being able to like just go through things like a like I'm a weatherman or something. It was nice to be able to do things that way. And I would love to get that setup going again, but at this point I would need to buy like new studio lights and everything. But in the meantime, I definitely wouldn't even mind doing both. Doing it here and doing it like in video format. It's cool. Like I love talking about this stuff, and there's a lot of hypes. We got a lot of juicy hype announcements from EVO Japan, but I'm going to quickly go through them because I am slowly losing my voice, and I'm quickly losing my sanity. So I think this one is one that sort of came out of nowhere, and rightfully so, because its initial announcement really came out of nowhere. And apparently there's a new Fighting EX Layer game in development. The trope on this one, 3D sidestepping mechanic and a combo breaker mechanic. Brand new move effects, which are just man, like I don't know, like what is it? Akira is the developer for this. I don't know like what these people be smoking before they made this game, but I mean, if the initial like announcement when this thing was originally revealed, what was it? Was it 2016? Was it 2016 or was it 2017? It had to have been one of those years. I mean, it was originally like an April Fool's thing, but it was April Fool's, but it was real. And then they did it again for this. I don't know if it's supposed to be a brand new game or if it's supposed to be like sort of an update or a new mode, but I mean it's seeming like it's like a game update. I think it might be like a DLC update actually that you have to purchase, maybe. I don't really know, but yeah, I mean this changes the entire game. Regardless, it changes the entire game like at its core. It's yeah, so it's gonna have 3D sidestepping mechanic, very similar to Tekken, combo breaker mechanic, and yeah, they're really spicing up the effects a little bit too much too. I think Maximilian has a video on it of him watching the footage. I think there's only one set of footage that has come out, and it's pretty clear that like the gameplay seems to be in like alpha. Things look very jank and rugged, but it, it's mainly there just to show you how the sidestepping looks and how it works, sort of how it already interacts with the physics that are already in the game. But no, I mean, it looks cool. I mean, once they can iron it out and, flesh it out fully, it's going to look even better. And I think I'm just happy that this game is still getting support because, it's not that popular. It's very obscure. And, I'm glad at least they have the funding apparently to make a brand new one or like at least an update, a significant update. So definitely something that I'll keep an eye on. It makes me also want to go back and actually play Fighting EX Layer. I have it. I played it for a little bit when it first came out and I just never really went back to it, but it was like one of the first games or fighting games to get like rollback, new fighting games to get rollback. So it's had decent online for a while, but it's just very obscure game. Not a lot of people play it. I think it's probably even a little bit difficult to find matches. And I know the developer originally wanted to do crossplay, but he got moved over to another title, which I don't remember what game it was. Was it Tekken? I think it was Tekken 8. He's also working on now, which is why people are very optimistic that Tekken 8 is going to have rollback, which it is, because at like literally like an hour or two before I started recording this, I saw a tweet from Harada. He was responding to somebody who was asking if rollback was going to be in, and he said, yes, it's already in. Stop complaining, shut up, and sit down. That's literally what he said. So yeah, I mean, Tekken 8 is going to have rollback, which is huge. I guess that's a quick little thing I could throw in there. But yeah, I think the developer of this game got moved over to Tekken 8 for a bit, and that's why he couldn't work on a cross-play sort of patch update. But, maybe it might come later down the line. Hopefully it does. It'd be really great for the community and the player base as a whole. Moving on, we got my favorite announcement from EVO Japan 2023. This is a huge one. It was maybe 3 o'clock in the morning when I saw this, and it was one of those moments where one of those rare moments where you're just like, dang, I really am a lonely person, because the amount that I just wanted to scream and freak out about this alongside somebody else, because that's how hype I was. King of Fighters 13 global match with rollback netcode coming to PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch and presumably PC, because that version can easily be updated. Beta coming in 2023 summer. Dude, I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it. The thing that I thought would never happen. The game that, I shouldn't say the game that I wanted to have roll back the most, because that's not true. The game that I want to have roll back the most is easily Ultra Street Fighter 4. But this game is almost a hard tie. If not a hard tie, it's a very, 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 very close second. And the reason why I said if it's not a hard tie is because the King of Fighters 13 is my favorite 2D fighting game ever created. It is the most beautiful 2D fighting game ever created. It is one of the most hype 2D fighting games you could ever watch at a competitive level. It is an amazing freaking game. This game was also love at first sight for me. When I first saw pictures of this game on SRK, pictures that were taken from the original Japanese arcade release for this game before we even knew if it was ever gonna come to console. The first time, this had to have been January of 2010? Maybe it was like March of 2010. I was like, bro, this game is going to be amazing. And it was. But the main problem was, of course, at that time, for pretty much every other fighting game, the online was trash. Just borderline unplayable trash. Borderline unplayable. But finally, it's getting rollback. In my opinion, this is the best King of Fighters game out of all of them. Yes, better than 98 UM. Yes, better than 2002 UM. Yes, better than the more recent KOF 15. Better than all of them. This is the best KOF game. This is the pinnacle of KOF. Getting rollback. Something we never thought would happen. And the reason why I thought it would never happen is because of how beloved this game is. And I always felt that SNK would just avoid updating this game for fear that it would take attention away from KOF 15. But apparently that's not the case. Apparently they don't care. I mean, money is money. If this game gets more attention, people are going to buy it. So why not? Why not? And it's getting re-released on platforms it's not currently at. You see, that's another thing. If they weren't going to release it on PS4 or the Switch, I feel like maybe they wouldn't have did this update at all. But since they can get something out of it, new buyers, brand new platforms, I think that's probably why. I think that's probably why we're even getting this in the first place, which really makes me hope they don't go half-ass on this netcode. It's getting a beta, so I have hope. But they better do this right. They got one shot at doing this right. They better do this right. Don't play with us. We've been waiting too long for this joint. Don't do it. I spent too long on this game. On to the next announcement. I'll run through these real quick. So Grand Blue Fantasy versus R, which is Rising. Another game I'm very excited for. It's still heavily slated for 2023. You know, I've sort of had my speculations that it's probably going to be delayed, but it really, every single video trailer they've released so far, they are really seemingly pushing this 2023 window. So I think it's actually going to come out this year. There's going to be an open beta test that's happening sometime in May, with details coming sometime this month. So, I mean, it's pretty early in the year to have an open beta, so it's got to be coming this year. And then this one pretty much sealed the deal for me. It's going to be playable on set at EVO 2023. There's probably going to be like sort of an invitational tournament for it, or like side tournament or exhibition for sure. Like, you can already expect that. So that's going to be hype. So yeah, really looking for Grand Blue Fantasy versus R as well. It's GB, how do I even, what is it? GBFVR, or I guess, just Fantasy Versus in general is, it's my favorite new modern 2D fighting game. I should say anime, because obviously like Street Fighter is always going to be my favorite, but as far as all the anime goes, Grand Blue is my favorite one, and I'm really like, so I could only explain for hours like how excited I am for this game and how happy I am that it's even getting a new version with rollback. You know how I am with KOF 13 getting rollback. That's how I was when Grand Blue Fantasy R got announced. I was freaking out. I was losing my mind because I also didn't believe it would happen, like many other people. Just didn't believe it would happen. I swear to God, 2023 is the year of dreams for fighting games, man. This is easily going to be the best year for fighting games, and you know, I'm just ready to like fully re-indulge into fighters like hardcore, full time, just like I sort of used to be. And you know, it's another reason why I want to have a dedicated segment to fighters every week here on the podcast. But moving on to miscellaneous FGC stuff that was announced at EVO Japan. So cross-platform play is going to be coming to KOF 15 with an open beta test coming this spring. I think most of us already suspected that. Samurai Showdown's rollback update is going to arrive sometime this spring. Now, I'm a little bit worried about this because their first beta, very rocky, basically terrible. So much desync it wasn't even funny. So to hear them not having a second beta plan, and they're just gonna straight up roll out the update, dude, that has me so freaking nervous. Don't drop the ball on this, please. Don't drop the ball on this, please. Don't. I'm happy to hear that it's coming in the spring. That's soon, but oh my God, it better work. It better freaking work. I mean, there's no way they haven't tested it themselves, right? Surely it works. Maybe that's just copium, but God, please don't drop the ball on this. Garo Mark of the Wolves 2, or Garo 2, as people are calling it, development is proceeding. So, you know, it's full steam ahead at this point, with Joe Higashi and Andy Bogard have already been confirmed as characters coming in the starting roster. So if, you know, Garo 2 is 100% happening. So if you're hyped for that, you know, it's on the way. So definitely can't wait for that. And lastly, closed alpha/beta tests are coming for Tekken 8 at Tekken World Tour events this year, including Combo Breaker, which is in Chicago, Illinois, I think next month in May, or it's maybe in June this year. I can't remember. I'll have to double check. And then at the Mix-Up in London, which is pretty soon too. I think that's after. Is that after? I think it might be a little bit before Combo Breaker. But those two events so far, those two TWT events so far have been the ones that are confirmed to have some Tekken 8. So, you know, I'm pretty sure Tekken 8's coming this year, man. Like, they are really moving quick with these character reveals and betas and stuff. Like, I just feel like it's coming out this year. I feel like they want to try and steal Street Fighter 6's thunder, and along with all these other fighters, like, It's a lot, man. It's a lot. But then again, like Tekken, they did the Bandai did the same thing with 7. I think 2016. What did we get in 2016? Did we get Mortal Kombat in 2016? I mean, we got a lot of fighters in 2016. We got Street Fighter 6, or sorry, we got Street Fighter 5. I think we got Mortal Kombat. It was either Mortal Kombat X or it was Injustice. What else did we get? Did we get Central Fiction around then? We got what is this game? We got Exert Rev sometime around there as well. And then Tekken 7 just like dropped all by itself during like 2017 for consoles in the States at least. So I mean it was still successful, so I don't know, like, do they really need to try and steal the thunder from all these other games? But there's just so much more coming this year than in 2016. Like this is 2023, assuming all of these games drop on time. That's including Street Fighter 6, Grand Blue. What else is supposed to be coming this year? I mean, there's Blazing Strike, which is the indie game. What else? Is that it? Oh, MK12. How could I forget MK12? And then not to mention like all the DLC for all these other games. Like if all this stuff is actually coming on time, I just feel like this could easily be one of the biggest years for fighting games, like within the past like decade for sure. So it's gonna be a pretty huge deal. So definitely looking forward to this year for fighting games, man. This is gonna be crazy. 2023 for fighters is gonna be off the wall. Anyway, time to move into the last block of this, because boy has this gone on so long and I have lost every ounce of my breath. I think like I don't want to freak y'all out, but I think I'm like losing. I think I'm actually having difficulty breathing. That's how like tired I am. Like I'm actually just exhausted, so it's like hard to breathe, like nonstop talking at this time in the morning. 6 a.m. by the way. But yeah, for sure, I'm freaking dead exhausted. But time to talk about the meat and potatoes of this episode, which is PAX East 2023. Had a lot of fun going to PAX East this past, what was it, last week? Last week I got back. It was the weekend before last week, where it all took place. Because yes, this is a late episode, so you know this is a catch-up episode. Really, this is a recap of all the stuff that's been going on. But wanted to talk a little bit about PAX East 2023. What an interesting experience. Honestly, what a mess of a trip. What a mess of a trip. Oh my God. Talk about a mess of a trip. And you know what? I'm not going to go into that here today, because I did promise the people in my Discord that I would take all... I ranted a lot on Discord throughout the entire trip, just talking about all the random stuff that happened. And I said that I would turn it all, I would input it all into Chat GPT and have them, you know, create a whole like story comedy out of it, which I still need to do. I can go back and do it. I actually did try the other day, but then I found out that apparently you can't put profanity into Chat GPT, otherwise it just doesn't accept the whole thing. So I've got to go back, put it all back in, but edit out all the profanity. So I still need to do that. So I'm not going to go into like all of the crazy stuff that happened, like that's not really related to PAX. But I do want to talk about the show a little bit because, yeah, so this is the second PAX East that has taken place since COVID, since their 2-year hiatus. Yeah, because there was one in 2020. It happened in February, which was just a time. I mean, while everybody was hanging out there at PAX East 2020, COVID was rapidly spreading. And, you know, that was the end of the current era of PAX as we knew it. But yeah, PAX East 2023, which was technically the fourth PAX back since COVID. So I'm trying to think actually. So PAX East 2022 was the first PAX back. Then there was PAX West last year. Then there was Unplugged last year. Yeah, so it was PAX East 2023 was the fourth PAX back. But the second PAX back since COVID. And definitely a different vibe from last year a little bit. I think one of the main things that most people noticed about the return to PAX post-COVID world was the lack of AAA developers, the lack of Microsoft, the lack of Sony, or I guess I should say Xbox, the lack of Nintendo, even Twitch, Discord doesn't have the same presence as they used to. Activision, like there's a lot of companies that just are not at PAX anymore. They weren't there last year and they weren't there this year. However, Nintendo was there this year. And I think Nintendo will probably be I think they will be the only company, funny enough, that will actually be at PAX for the foreseeable future. And that's because of Nintendo Versus. They are really using that as they're really using PAX events as sort of their, how can I say, I guess you can say their home for their World Circuit series or their World Championship series for their Nintendo Versus games, which include Smash Ultimate, and Mario Kart 8, and Splatoon 3 at the moment, at least. So they're kind of using PAX as a sort of their proving grounds for those titles. And it's actually been like that for a while. I think ever since they first debuted Nintendo Versus, which was around back when the Switch came out, is when they started doing that. And I mean, ever since then, they've been at basically every PAX as far as I can remember, and they've already held a handful of tournaments themselves at PAX events. So I mean, they're one of the bigger companies that I could see being there for the foreseeable future, while a lot of other big companies have been dipping out altogether, and it's just become a much larger indie show, I guess you can say. And it still has that presence, that indie heavy presence that a lot of people were taking notice to last year, with the lack of bigger developers. But this year definitely felt like things were returning back to normal. Yes, there still is that void that, there's still that void and that sting that, dang, things are never going to be like they were post-COVID, where these big developers, these big companies were coming out to events all the time, coming out to these shows all the time, having their latest games, having their upcoming games on display, on demo, big freaking lines for all these upcoming games. It's not quite going to be like that anymore. And, that kind of brings me into the E3 thing. It kind of brings me to the whole E3 cancellation thing, which I wanted to touch on a little bit. Because it's a shame. It's a shame. The industry is changing. And, I don't really think that the excuse of, people can just watch this stuff at home, people could just experience this stuff at home, I don't really feel like that's a good excuse. I think if that were the case, nobody would be coming to PAXs, because PAX is, well, first of all, I forgot to mention this, but PAX East sold out completely this year. They didn't sell out all at once like they used to pre-COVID, but they still sold all of their badges this year. They completely sold out for every single day, every single badge type. And I just feel like if it were true that, people really weren't interested in these game shows, these larger scale conventions, I don't think PAX would still exist either. Which just shows that E3 is in general just doing something wrong. Which really leads me into the discussion that I think E3 definitely can still survive in today's market. They just actually need to redefine themselves. I don't really know exactly what they were planning for this year. I don't know what exactly was supposed to happen. How was it supposed to look different than the past years? But I am going to go into this IGN article really quickly before I go over, like my favorite indie games I saw at PAX. I still want to talk about this a little bit. Let me get another sip before I die. So, this one is written by IGN, and it's not that long of an article, so I could probably read the whole thing. I could definitely do it. So it says, almost a year after announcing its return, the Entertainment Software Association announced today to its members that this year's Electronic Entertainment Expo, E3, has been canceled. IGN can confirm. Two sources have confirmed to IGN that the organization announced the cancellation via an email sent out to its members today. The email said that while E3 remains a beloved event and brand, that the 2023 version simply did not garner the sustained interest necessary to execute it in a way that would showcase the size, strength, and impact of our industry. The ESA concludes the email by reiterating its commitment to advocacy work. It does not mention undertaking the show again in future years, which is kind of a shame, but I still don't think that it's completely off the table. Following IGN's report, the ESA issued a following public statement from Kyle Manderson Kish, Global VP of Gaming, ReedPop. This was a difficult decision because of all the effort we and our partners put toward making this event happen, but we had to do what's right for the industry and what's right for E3. We appreciate and understand that interested companies wouldn't have playable demos ready, and that resourcing challenges made being at E3 this summer an obstacle they couldn't overcome. For those who did commit to E3 2023, we're sorry we can't put on the showcase you deserve that you've come to expect from ReedPop's event experiences. The press release adds that the ReedPop and ESA will continue to work together on future E3 events. Sounds promising. The event was supposed to be held from June 13th through June 16th at the Los Angeles Convention Center and would have been the first in-person E3 event since 2019. The event was canceled in 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic, and while a digital version was held in 2021, the event was canceled again in 2022 in an effort to focus on a revitalized showcase that would set a new standard for hybrid industry events. E3's return for this year was announced last June, alongside the confirmation that E3 2022 has been canceled. The news comes as multiple big names in the industry from Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, and more recently Ubisoft announced that it would not be attending E3 in any capacity, with most opting to host its own digital showcases. IGN has reached out to the ESE and ReedPop for comment. So there you have it. And I think primarily the main thing that put this thing in the casket was the announcement that Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, Ubisoft, all these other developers weren't going to be there. All these other big time developers, which just leads me to believe that this is what they were relying on the entire time, which is silly. Which is just silly because, I mean, these companies have gone through how many years now? Like 3-4 years going on now that have been doing their own thing since COVID. And I don't know, it's just very strange that they would, it's very strange that they would first announce that, oh yeah, we're doing a revitalized show, we're redefining ourselves, but you're going to rely on the exact same companies, you're going to rely on the exact same format to show up and support you. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it sounds like it was going to be a lot of the same. I really wish we could get an inside scoop as to what exactly they were planning on changing with the overall structure of E3 this year, and how this redefinition of itself was going to look. But we don't have any of that information. But based on how things unfolded with all these companies coming out saying, yeah, we're not going to be there, and then them ultimately canceling once it seemed like there's nobody left, it just leads me to believe that a lot of this was going to be exactly the same, which is kind of the problem that I've been having, because I've always just thought, like, why not just make PAX an E3, or why not just make E3 be, I don't want to say, how would I even put it into words? Why not just make E3 be sort of a complement to a show, or like a segment to a show, or to a convention that already exists? Like, you could have E3 at DreamHack, or E3 at PAX East, or what else do we have, or E3 at GDC, something like that. Like, have it be like a side event or something that's already taking place at like a convention that's going on. Because I mean, as far as like, for what E3 was, which is basically where all these companies come out, hold a press conference, have demos on the show floor the following day. I mean, for what that was, I mean, yeah, they don't really need to do that anymore. You can, all these people can literally just do a live show from their freaking studios and have us all sit there and watch it at home. And a lot of the times now, too, they just have demos ready to go for you to download the same day. A lot of the stuff a lot of these they have, okay, yeah, and a demo is up right after this show. You don't need to go to a convention center, spend all this money on freaking props and having to hire freaking people to, guide the lines and show you how to play a demo. Like, they don't need to do that anymore. And yeah, that I would 100% agree with. Especially when it comes to these big companies. For indie developers, yeah, it's probably a little bit more necessary because, you really want to get your name out there. You really want to get your game out there. So yeah, going to these shows is actually pretty important. But for these big time companies, it's really just not as needed anymore. It's just very telling as to how E3 really has to redefine itself. In my opinion, I think it really just needs to become more of a community focused event. It needs to be more focused on like the players, less on these big companies making announcements. I think that's what it always was supposed to be. And that's why I've been saying for years, like, why don't they just make E3 like PAX? Why not just make it PAX? It could literally be, E3 could literally be PAX summer. Because technically PAX fall is west. And PAX spring or PAX winter is east. And, PAX Unplugged, I mean, PAX Unplugged is PAX Unplugged. But, I mean, it would be perfect. Because, yeah, we have dream hacks in the summer every now and then, but those are typically just esport. That's typically like an esport exclusive event, an esport / LAN exclusive event. I wouldn't really call it like a gaming event. I gotta be careful with my wording because I don't want to upset nobody. But I wouldn't really call it a gaming community event. Well, I guess it is. It is a LAN, but it's not the same sort of gaming community event to the extent that PAX is. And to the extent that E3 was never really one, but at least to the extent that E3 was in terms of what they had going on and what they sort of offered, I think E3 definitely probably has a little bit more, or had a little bit more going for it. Whereas DreamHack has always been more about esports. But I definitely think that summertime in the gaming industry, especially we're around June, E3 has always been like there, and now there's like a void where it could just easily be replaced as just like another convention, but not garnered to the press. E3 is really a big press show. It has, in the past, it was always a big press show. And yeah, as we started moving towards COVID, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, yeah, it started to slowly shift and maybe evolve a little bit more towards being sort of like PAX, but it never really got to that point. And I think that's where it needs to be if it's actually going to come back. I think it needs to be more of a PAX. And I think it would be perfect because if y'all saw at PAX this year, they did have a Final Fantasy 16 showcase, and they do these showcases sometimes where like a third-party developer or like a more larger scale company will come out, bring a game, and they will actually do their own like panel for it. That is exactly something that I would imagine a new E3 would entail or would include, is something like that. Maybe not exactly having full-on press conferences, but like a bigger company has a very highly anticipated title coming. They can come out to the show, do a panel on it, call it a day. I mean, FF16 was even there to be played. There was no demo for it. They didn't bother with no demo. they literally just showed off the game and went home. I mean, that was about it. They did the same thing for Final Fantasy 14 as well. And this is basically just what I think they could be doing with E3, and I think that's definitely where it can go. I don't want to spend too much time on this topic because I kind of want to get into the indie titles real quick that I was able to play while I was there. But for sure, we're gonna end up coming back to this again because the void of a lack of E3 is it's a sting, man. It's a sting, and it's just it's a sting, and it bothers me when I hear people say, "Oh, good riddance. Thank God it's dead." Blah blah blah. We don't need it, because it's like I get the feeling that those people don't. First of all, I get the feeling that these are the people who literally just sit behind a screen all day, have never been to an event a day in their life, so they don't even know like how fun these events really are. They don't really know they don't know what going to a community event is like. And that's another thing why E3 was like so beloved to a lot of people, is because it was like a big, I mean, in a way it was a big community event, even though it was more press garnered. It was more like a special kids club, honestly, until they actually started selling public passes. And that's another thing what I meant by, they were slowly starting to evolve towards that community event, especially when they started selling public passes to the public, because it was never originally an event open to the public. That was only within recent years that it become that. But they were getting there. So yeah, I mean, that's why, I mean, it just bothers me when the people just say, "Oh, it's not coming back," blah 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 blah, because it's like, yeah, it shouldn't come back in its current form, but it could easily come back as something better and something more relevant to, what we really need in these times. Because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't really got any big gaming conventions, community gatherings outside of PAX and DreamHack in the US. That's it. And DreamHack is still very fresh in the US. So, I mean, before DreamHack started happening here, we only had PAX. That's it. I mean, GDC isn't really what it once was either. So, I mean, we really only had PAX. To be honest, that's it. That's honestly it. I mean, there's some smaller shows here and there, but I mean, PAX is like the pinnacle. PAX is like the pinnacle here right now. So, I mean, we don't have Gamescom like Europe has and stuff. So, I mean, that is what it is. But anyway, moving on from that, we'll eventually talk about E3 again. Another thing, like, this is another thing I will probably definitely go back to. I think especially when we move into the summer, maybe I will do like a lack of E3 sort of show, just to sort of talk about what people might want. Have some guests on, talk about what people might want from a actual redefined or renewed or revitalized, or what's the word I'm looking for? Revived E3. Will be a good topic, good show to have. But anyway, moving on, I wanted to talk real quickly about my favorite indie titles that I came across at PAX East. Go over them real quickly. Maybe you guys can check them out, because there are some pretty good titles that, I had my eyes on, and I would like to share those with y'all real quick. First up is N-Cycle Versus by 12B3 and Hawthorne Games. I think this one is extra worth mentioning because Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection is coming out next week. And this is a very Battle Network, heavily inspired Battle Network-like game. It's like a PvP game, more PvP focused than Battle Network is, but it does have a campaign. This is actually the game that I was able to play on the Steam Deck. So this is, the one of the main developers of the game. He was there, and he was like, "Hey, you want to try it on the Steam Deck?" I'm like, "Dude, I've never used one of these before." He's like, "Dude, try it. It's awesome." He's like, "My only problem with it is like sometimes the OS isn't great," but that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, he let me try his game on the Steam Deck, and it ran amazingly. It felt great, and the fact that we're getting these like Battle Network grid style PvP games that are actually aim towards being more competitive experience is just, it's so amazing to me, because you know I've always wanted Battle Network to sort of have like online multiplayer growing up, and yes, it's getting it now, but it's going to be bare bones. I mean, apparently it's going to have ranked, but I mean the customization that's available in this game is it's going to be a lot more, it's a lot more in depth than anything that's offered in Battle Network. So definitely something worth checking out if you're a fan of you know, grid style RPGs, or like Mega Man Battle Network franchise in general. Definitely check that one out. Let me get some more liquid. Next up though is Arcadian Atlas by Twin Other Studios. Now this one I didn't play because I can't imagine sitting down and playing a tactics game while so much is going on around me. On top of that, like a single battle is going to take you like 30 minutes to an hour. I guess like 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how much you're into it. But this is a very heavily inspired Final Fantasy Tactics game. Very beautiful design. Like, you would think, if you quickly looked and then turned away, you would think it's Final Fantasy Tactics. That's how amazing the art style is. The voice acting is pretty decent. You know, some of these indie games, I get it, they're not on a huge budget, so they can't afford like these high-end voice actors, but this game, in my opinion, has very good voice acting and very depthy combat from what I've seen. Like, there's a lot of mechanics that you have to work with. Seems like it's a lot more strategy heavy, maybe even than some of the tactics games out there. But overall, like, this is definitely going to help fill the void of, you know, our lack of a Final Fantasy Tactics remake or re-release. Like, yes, we got Tactics Ogre, but you know, it's not Final Fantasy Tactics. So if Final Fantasy Tactics never comes back, I'm going to be able to cope now just fine, because some of these new tactics games by indie devs are looking amazing, if not way better than Final Fantasy Tactics. So like, I can live without it now, because, well, I mean, like I said, dude, like, I'm done relying on these first party, second party, third party developers to deliver me these games that I want, man, because indie devs are starting to do it. They're starting to do it like that. They are fulfilling dreams out here. So yeah, definitely check out Arcadian Atlas if you guys are into tactics games. If you're into Fire Emblem, I definitely think it's worth checking out. Moving on to this one. This is actually the last. I'm so glad that I found this game. I'm so glad that I saw this, because I saw it on the last day that I was on the show floor on Sunday. Shot 1 by Red Moon Workshop. Boy, when I say that this game is like Jesus descending from the clouds and resurrecting Windjammers 2. So yeah, I mean, I didn't even need to say it, but I'll say it's a heavily inspired Windjammers game, with very different looking characters, which feature very different play styles. It's basically Windjammers. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's basically Windjammers. Looks a little bit better. Looks a lot more unique character design wise. I mean, in Windjammers, they're all like people. In this game, though, you got like different species and all sorts of things. And on top of that, it features a adventure. It's sort of like a top-down adventure style campaign mode, which I didn't get to see any gameplay of, but I think there's a few pictures of it on their Steam page. But no, they actually did a little exhibition, like sort of small tournament, I think, as well, for the game. I wasn't there for it, but like somebody uploaded like video footage of it from the show. And so, I mean, it already looks like they're catering to like that sort of abandoned Windjammers 2 crowd, because, you know, Windjammers 2 developers abandoned us. You know, they released the game early last year and have not updated it since. No lobbies, no nothing. So that's great. So, you know, Shot 1 is here to save us. It's almost the exact same game. I mean, it's not. I feel like that sounds very rude to say. I mean, it has that same Windjammers spirit, is what I'm trying to say. So if you've been burned by the Windjammers devs, come on over to this game, okay? Check this game out. It's not out yet, obviously, but yeah, it's time for us to move on. Like I could check the Windjammers 2 Discord right now, and I already know there ain't no new post by them devs. They have left. So come on over to Shot One when this game is ready, 100%. Last one on my list. This is obviously my favorite one from the show. I have been following this game on Twitter, or the developers of this game on Twitter, for a while. I think maybe even a year or so or more. So I was very shocked and happy to see that they were actually going to be at PAX. Like, I was surprised. Alturium Shift, basically Octopath meets Dragon Quest meets Final Fantasy, I guess, meets Chrono Trigger. It's basically all those games. It's an RPG, classic style RPG with 2.5D visuals, very similar to Octopath. Its battle system honestly is more similar to like Final Fantasy, like old school Final Fantasy games, or like kind of what you've seen in the very short teaser trailer for the Dragon Quest III 2.5D remake. Very similar to that, and it's got full voice acting. It's basically everything you would want out of a 2.5D RPG, and there's not a lot of them out right now. We've got a few. So we have is it Live Alive? We have that. We have Octopath. Was there another one that's out? I don't think there's another one that's out. I think it's mostly just those two. I think there might be one other one. But there are a lot of 2.5D RPG indie titles in the works, and Alturium Shift is kind of like one of the main big ones that is coming out, one of the more popular ones that is coming out, but there are a lot coming for sure. So like this genre is about to explode big time, and I think a lot of its populace is going to be from indie developers too. So I mean, as far as Octopath goes, like I have almost zero interest in Octopath 2 now, and that's mostly due to like the characters having like I just don't care for any of the characters in that game. I don't resonate with any of them characters like I did with like the first cast in the first game. So I mean, as far as Octopath 2 goes, I don't care. So like my eyes are all on these indie 2.5D RPGs now. Like this all I care about. So Alturium Shift, I got to play it too, and I mean it plays amazing. A game like the battle system feels very smooth. It looks great. Yeah, there's not like voice acting for everything, but there are like the cutscenes have voice acting, and it all sounds really good from what I heard. There's also a demo for it that's available right now on Steam. I think they're planning on doing early access sometime in the spring. I'm not really sure how much of the game that will include, but they are planning on doing like another chunk of content to release to the public to demo out before a full release. So definitely looking forward to that. I don't even know if I'll play that because I don't want to spoil too much. Like I like playing these games in full. I don't really like doing demos too much, but anyway, those are the what's that? My top 4? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's my top 4 from PAX East. But I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that I saw too that look really interesting. I think this game is called Lost Soul. Was it? Let me look it up. I gotta see. Was it Lost Soul? Is it Lost Soul Aside? No, this isn't it. Oh, see, now I can't remember the name. Soul Tactics game. See, now I'm mad because now I can't remember. Oh, new 3D tactics game. I'm trying to see if I could find it. Oh, man, are you serious? I can't find it now, man. Maybe was this? No way, this was that obscure of a game. Anyway, yeah, there's like this other. It was Soul something, Soul Tactics. I'm gonna look up indie game just in case it is an indie title. Yeah, I can't find it. I can't find it. I can't find it. But it was a very like I almost want to say it was like what's this franchise called? Not Hyrule Warriors, but like sort of what Hyrule Warriors was inspired by. Man, what was I can't even remember anything. I can't even remember I can't even remember what Hyrule Warriors is based off of. God freaking dang it, man. How did I forget? Was it Dynasty Warriors? Dynasty Warriors. It almost looks like if Dynasty Warriors became a Fire Emblem game. That's what it looked like. Man, that game looked amazing. That game looked amazing. Like, I was like, dude, imagine if Fire Emblem had these kind of visuals. Oh my god. I know I'm gonna come across it again sometime soon, but I don't know if that can even be considered an indie title. I don't know, but I mean, dude, it's hard for me to find it, so I mean, it may as well be an indie title, right? Like, oh my goodness. But yeah, I wish I added that one to my list, but I don't really consider it to be an indie title because it seemed like they got a pretty big budget if they're making something like that, for sure. But anyway, yeah, I mean overall, PAX 2023 definitely a return to normalcy to a degree. For sure, like after last year, I kind of wasn't really sure if I even wanted to go back because last year it just felt so empty. It just felt so much like a void, and I feel like if I weren't there, last year was actually my first year going there with people that I knew. I once again went alone this year, and it's probably gonna be like that for a while. But I feel like if I didn't go with people that I knew last year, I would have been incredibly bored, like bored out of my mind. And I think it also helped that the people that I went with, it was their first PAX ever, so I kind of had the honor of like leading them around their first PAX ever. But I feel like if I didn't, or if I hadn't gone with other people, like it would have been incredibly boring because there's just not much going on, and on top of that, there weren't that many people there. It just felt like a very empty show. But this year, like I said, the show floor was a lot more full. Yeah, there were still voids here and there, but PAX Arena was back into full effect. There were a lot more developers. There are a lot more stuff going on. It also really helped that there was a lot of Street Fighter 6 stuff, surprisingly. None of that stuff was advertised either beforehand, but it was a pleasant surprise that I showed up and there was a lot of Street Fighter 6 stuff, stations going on. The game was there. Capcom wasn't, but I mean, the game was still there, so I thought that was really awesome. But it definitely felt like a return to normalcy. It definitely gave me hope that, okay, finally I think it feels like we're officially out of this COVID era. Events are going to be returning to full form this year for sure. And I think like PAX is starting to find itself in this new era and will definitely be able to establish itself without these bigger developers at all of the shows. And I think it's really just going to give much more room for all these indie companies and developers a chance to shine. So I think it's a positive outlook when you look at it that way. But anyway, man, I'm dying out here. I am dying out here. This has been a pretty long episode, dude. I am losing like basically every single breath of my body. Every single breath of my body is basically gone. It's time for me to wrap it up. It's time for me to wrap it. 7 a.m. by the way. 7 a.m. by the way. Dude. We've been doing this for too long, but it's time to wrap it up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. This is Season 0, Episode 4. All of my PAX shenanigans. Well, not really all my PAX shenanigans. I didn't really get to talk about that much other stuff. I wanted to go into the Final Fantasy 16 panel a little bit as well, which was also really good. But all these juicy news pieces for the week that we've been behind on. Hopefully next week's episode, or I guess at this point, this week's episode, we can streamline things a little bit better. I don't really have a talking point even in mind for next week. So hopefully one comes up between now and then. Between now and at least by Friday, or at the latest by Friday. But that's gonna do it for this episode today. Thank you guys for listening. Like I said, we've got probably about 4 to 5 more episodes left of Season 0 before I go on I don't know. It won't be that long of a break, but it'll probably be at least 1 or 2 weeks before we officially kick off season 1 and start with our live format, or video format, I should say. Video format. Let me get it right. In case you're listening to these on a platform you don't want to be listening to it on, these are available on my SoundCloud page, which is soundcloud.com/GlakeReuno now. Actually, I think it's still Wave X Music. No, it's Glake Reuno now. Yeah, it's Glake Reuno now. We're also on Spotify now as well. I don't know the official link, but if you just search the G-SYNCH podcast, you'll be able to find it. It's on Google Podcasts as well, the G-SYNCH podcast, and this is on my YouTube, because apparently YouTube is trying to push podcasts now, strangely enough. I don't know why, but they are. youtube.com/GlakeGG. We're on there as well, or I'm on there as well. And new episodes will be going up on all of those platforms every single time it's a new ep. That's gonna do it for this one. I'm out of here. Time for me to get some sleep. I got work in like 6 hours. I might be dead next week. Y'all might not hear from me. I'm out of here. You guys enjoy your holiday, and I'll catch you guys next week. Later.